welcome to That Show with Mahy. My name is Stephen May, and today I am with the wonderful Mr. Will Centurion. He is a counsellor and a life coach. And during COVID-19, I'm sure, isolation, not COVID-19 itself, it's been a very interesting time. We've just been talking about how busy he's been during this time. But before this even hit, I know Will has really been working behind the scenes for singers, actors and dancers. Welcome, Will. Thanks very much for joining me.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. This is such an amazing opportunity, and I can't wait to sort of get into conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, before we hit isolation world, tell me a bit about, because you come from a performer's background, but you transitioned into being a counsellor and a life coach. What was that? How did that spark for you, and why did you go into that field?
I think the big change for me was towards the tail end of my career. So I sat in music theatre for about 20 years, and the first 17 years were great, and there was a lot of growth, a lot of discovery, lots of travel, lots of living out of a suitcase. So it was exciting, and then I kind of got to a point towards the tail end of my career where the effort reward was out of balance. And that impacted on my emotional and psychological health a lot.
Right.
I think I realized in terms of my growth in the industry, I'd kind of capped. I'd done everything that I was able to kind of do with my skill set.
Okay.
And so that sort of became a bit of a barrier. And also the workload, that kind of discipline, the being away from family, all of those, all of those things that you have to do being a performing artist. It just kind of like, it became complicated. And so I guess personally, I kind of went through a lot of mental health issues. So I had a lot of depression and a lot of performance anxiety. And I sought out help from a psychologist, and that was a big light bulb moment for me, because I realized that I hadn't really discovered any other hats. Being a performer was all I knew. And it was time for me to transition into something that brought me joy again. And so that ended up being counselling and life coaching.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, people sort of think, being in the arts is just this amazing thing, and like we get rewarded, we earn heaps of money, and the lifestyle. What do you mean you get to travel, you get to do this? But I think you really hit the nail on the head. There's so much sacrifice, and there's so much of you that you have to wake up every day. You are the one that's getting out there, and if it's not you, it's going to be somebody else. And there's that kind of fight to get going and going and going. I mean, 20 years is an incredible career for anyone in the arts. So congratulations on that. But I guess stepping forward, now that you've had that 20 years experience, and are you focusing the business on specifically performers because you know so much about it, or do you open up to a wide variety of people?
I think the transition from one career to another was quite smooth for me, because I found something else that I was passionate about. And it also allowed me to keep an attachment to the industry. I think if I just sort of cut the cord and had to leave that part of my identity behind, it would have been a lot harder. But because I was able to transition and keep an attachment to community and keep an attachment to that kind of skill set and all of that experience, it was smooth. And so I was excited about that next chapter. It wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't confronting. It felt really organic.
Yeah, great. So I guess looking at performers and the mental health of that, why? I mean, I know it's quite high that people are either depressed, they have anxiety, or they have just different emotions that come up. Why is it that there's a stigma on it that if you've got anxiety, you've got depression, there's something wrong with you, and people feel that they, look, I don't, or maybe you're a problem. I kind of would like to hear, I guess, how do we break that stigma in an industry where we are going from highs as it could be to the lowest of lows, and people just expect that's, just get on with it and do the job. How do we break that stigma?
I think a really important fact is to acknowledge that there's so much stress that comes with our careers. There's so much pressure, there's so much criticism, there's so much deconstruction, there's so much rejection. It's not a case of why are you vulnerable in this industry? It's how could you not be? Given everything that we're confronted by, how can we not be vulnerable? And a big misconception is that you can't work with vulnerability, and you can. One of the kinds of therapy or the modalities that I use is acceptance and commitment therapy, which means that you are able to acknowledge your challenge, you're able to view it, you're able to identify it with it, and also kind of hold its hand and keep walking forward with it alongside you, rather than this kind of idea that, well, we need to kind of be problem-free or challenge-free, or we have to kind of power through, and fight through any kind of conflict we might have. It's more so that, it can walk safely beside you. You can work with depression. You can work with anxiety. You can work with imposter syndrome and still be really productive and high functioning and have a wonderful and successful career.
Yeah. I personally, asking for help is a big thing for me. Like, I struggle because I go, oh no, like I'm okay. Like, I can deal with this, or I'm embarrassed to ask for help. It's getting to that next stage that just opens up a massive door. Once we sort of all jobs shut down, and for the foreseeable future, I was like, look, financially, I'm going to struggle. And I was sort of sitting there for a couple of weeks, going, no, I'm fine. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And you're like, oh, and everything just sort of came to the forefront. And it wasn't until I asked for help from my family or my partner that all of a sudden, like, the help just arrived. Everything that I needed was there. I guess that, the question is, how do we take that next step? How do I know to come to Will? How do I know that this is the right thing without it feeling, I don't know, icky and hard? And, just trying to get through that first stage is sometimes the hardest, because once you do get, into formatting and getting a formula, and like you said, working with that by your side, you can still function. What's some advice for people to sort of just be like, okay, that first step, because it really is the hardest?
I think there's a massive fear that acknowledging a challenge means that it's going to get the better of you. And so we like to lean into sort of ignorance is bliss. Yeah. And that doesn't do anything with the problem. It literally means that it just kind of sits and festers. So you have to be willing to acknowledge that there's something that you need to work through. And that might require some internal resources, but also some external resources. And so once you position yourself in a place where you are comfortable with your vulnerability, or you at least notice it and acknowledge it, then you can be open to receive the help that you need in order to be able to keep moving forward. And very few people, once the help does come, it's unlikely that you won't, sort of get some sort of progress. It's kind of, it's once you open the door, help is there, you're asking the questions, you're getting the answers, you're able to integrate strategies, and that's how you move forward from a situation.
Yeah. There are so many different types of people that you would come across, from different ages up until, well, I'm assuming, I should ask that question, are you seeing a huge range of people of age ranges coming to you, or is it a specific age range at the moment that you're like, wow, I'm just seeing this massive peak and I really need to support that?
So it's interesting the way that my service kind of panned out was initially I went into this wanting to work with professionals, and I met a lot of blocks there. There were a lot of blocks there. There were a lot of organizations that kind of do that. There's not a lot of collaboration in terms of being able to infiltrate that demographic.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of resistance from that demographic to want to open up to the conversation around mental health.
Yeah.
So that naturally kind of geared me into working with adolescents. So now I work with a lot of emerging professionals, and I work with a lot of performing arts youth. And I'm like blown away by the capacity that they have to actually talk about their problems.
Right.
And to be really, really transparent and really authentic and really congruent about them, because it's almost as though that demographic understands that they no longer want to feel that way and they want a different experience. So therefore they're able to talk about it and put their hand up. So I've gotten a lot of pleasure from working with adolescents and emerging professionals. And it goes right through down to about 8-year-olds, I think, is kind of like the youngest that I've worked with. And, you know, I adapt a lot of my mental health skills workshops to suit that age group. But it resonates with them. And the whole point is that anytime you attend one of my workshops or anytime you come and see me for counseling or for life coaching or for whatever it may be, it is about empowerment. The whole point of it is about empowerment. Like, I want you to be able to walk out of that space feeling reconnected to hope. And so it's not about, you know, sort of it's going to be really heavy and you're going to be overwhelmed with statistics and you're going to feel really bad about yourself and really raw. You're going to walk away knowing that there is a full potential that you can lean into at whatever pace you choose to.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it doesn't always have to be about having a problem either, does it? I mean, having a life coach or going to see a counselor could be like, you know what, I'm feeling really good. I just want a bit more clarity. I just want a bit of focus and a goal. Is that something maybe that, so I dare say, older generation or the professional development of people, that they kind of go, well, I'm fine, but, you know, how can we break that stigma, or how can we sort of go, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with you? Have you ever just chatted to someone to say, oh, that's really just pissed me off. I'm okay with it. I'm not feeling depressed. I'm not feeling anxiety, but I don't know, I want to have a chat with other than someone, my mate, who possibly might judge or possibly might just have an opinion because they know me too well. Like coming to you, they can kind of talk to someone that is like, I am totally objective here. I'm just going to offer you some suggestions. How do we kind of draw that out of people to sort of, not necessarily everyone needs to go and see a counselor and a coach, but I just that vital thing about just talking to someone at any point of your life.
You know, I think we don't really take a lot of time to acknowledge our strengths. I think, and when we do, we're not conditioned to. As performers, we're not conditioned to acknowledge our strengths. We're conditioned to acknowledge what we still need to work on or what's not good enough. So we very rarely get the opportunity to sit down and be like, this is who I am, this is what I'm good at, and I can own that confidently without coming across as being arrogant or conceited. So anytime I open up a therapeutic space, it really much is about like a renewal or a recalibration or a reconnection or a rediscovery of the strengths that you already have, and potentially the integration of some new ones. So it's important. It's really important to understand that like mental health isn't just about sitting there and talking about your depression and your anxiety or any other kind of challenge that you might have in a way that makes you feel despair. It's more so reinforcing that that's there to teach you something, that vulnerability is one of your strengths, and how are you going to use it to propel yourself forward.
I guess in this time of isolation, and you've probably seen, you know, a lot of things really pop up for a lot of people. You know, we all are asking, is everyone okay? Like, how are you going? I mean, we spoke offline before, that it's like, this has been busy and it's a lot. How do you cope as having, I mean, I'm an energy person. So when I'm around people with different energy, I really feel it or I take it on. I mean, how do you deload, or how do you go, okay, that's that part of the world, and this is
It's really tough because I'm an empath, so I take a lot on board, even when I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm extremely busy at the moment because a lot of people are needing support, or a lot of people are needing a reminder of who they are, or a lot of people are needing to re-explore other parts of their identity. So it's business is great in terms of mental health at the moment because everybody's searching for some kind of answer. And that can be really overwhelming because there's a lot of giving. This is just as much for me a live performance as it is when I'm on stage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got to be on, and I've got to be willing to meet a person where they're at, and to share, and to, you know, hold the space for them. And so it can be really exhausting. My self-care is really important. I wish I'd understood that as a performer, just how important that is. That I'm allowed to make choices, that if I need to kind of like go and sit in a cave for a while, that's okay. If I need to not talk to people, that's okay. If I need to not socialize, that's okay. I don't owe anybody anything. The person that I need to honor and respect is myself. So if my tank isn't full, and if I don't feel 100%, then I need to make sure that I put the oxygen mask on me, and I need to make sure that I put my own house in order first before I worry about everybody else's house.
Yeah. And that's so important. And I wish, like you say, like, why didn't I know this earlier to sort of, you know, turn inwards, or why did I balk at that kind of like first meditation class? Because I was like, what's that? It's a bit weird. Or I think now that we're finding different ways of coming into those, say, a spiritual world or a healing world, it doesn't seem so taboo anymore. It just sort of seems so far out of reach that, you know, spirituality was about a different universe, and it was crystals and, you know, different things, where now I think everything is so tangible that we can really connect just by, like, even, you know, walking barefoot in the sand or in the dirt and connecting back to earth. And it's so amazing to sort of see this reset that we have really been gifted by, I don't know, the universe, Mother Nature, society. What's your, I guess, to sort of try and put this in a bit of a tie up at the end, without sort of people, you know, just give them a bit of a taste of your top 3 sort of advice at this time. And then also, can you just explain how people can connect with you? And what's the best way to do that?
Okay. So I guess top 3 takeaways. The most important one, and every kind of workshop that I do, I always say I literally should get these printed up as t-shirts. But it is to stay in your own lane, to not compare to anybody else's journey, to understand that you are operating in your lane with your timeline, your process, your approach, your measures. And the more that you compare to somebody else's journey, the more that you wish that your life resembled somebody else's, the less that you are honoring your creative journey and how you are evolving, how you are growing. So comparison is, as they say, it's the death of creativity. You can borrow from other people's strengths and rebrand them and make them your own, but I think it does you a real disservice to not shine brightly in your own lane. So that's a massive takeaway. Just to honor what it is that you're going through, particularly now, sort of this whole COVID-19 crisis. A lot of people have this pressure to bounce back and, you know, be productive and find new ways to be creative and you know, repair really quickly and re-engage in a matter of weeks because somebody else did. And so, you know, why am I at home, you know, unmotivated, and why am I procrastinating, and why am I, you know, not reconnecting to the industry the way that I was before? Maybe because you were burnt out. And maybe because this is the perfect opportunity for you to take the rest that you need in order to be able to recharge. And so honor that your recovery or how you cope with COVID-19 doesn't need to look like anybody else's. It just needs to be you, authentically you. So acknowledge what you're going through and honor that. And I guess, what's the third takeaway I could give you? To to maintain some form of connection. It's really important to maintain some form of connection, and to use the art of asking if you need to. Isolation can be really deadly for us. So it's important to just have some anchors or some attachments that you can lean into, so you don't feel like you're going through this alone, because we're all having different experiences of the same thing. And so there's always somebody who will hold a torch for you. There is always somebody who will understand a part of what you're going through. And so at no point do you need to feel as though you're alone.
Amazing. And so, just sort of if people want to book a session with you or join a workshop or anything like that, how can they contact you?
So you can contact me at mrwillcenturion.com.
Yep.
You can contact me at mrwillcenturion@gmail.com.
Yep.
Also on Instagram and Facebook. I've got a free workshop coming up at the end of May. I'm actually going to do like a coping with COVID-19 as creatives free workshop. So I'll definitely blast that out. So, I love putting on initiatives that people can attend, without having sort of charge or anything like that, because the more that we can open it up to our community, the better. And hopefully I've got a workshop for equity wellness in the pipeline. So that might be another way to connect as well.
Amazing. I'll put all that information in the description and sort of tag you in different things that people can contact you with. This is going out to all the social media platforms on YouTube. So we do a lot of descriptions. So please read the description or contact Will, maybe just a tag, and then just look out for the information we've just discussed. Will, I really enjoyed talking to you today, and thank you so much for taking the time. And I hope you're okay, and I hope that the business is just thriving for you, because I really do connect with you. We've had a couple of chats before, and thank you for what you do.
You're totally welcome. Thank you so much for having me, and this has been a great opportunity to reconnect with you and just to sort of have a quite open and frank conversation about mental health in our industry. And I wish you all the best. I know that what we're going through is temporary, and we will, recreate what our industry looks like. So take care of yourself until we meet again.
You too.